want to thank my sponsor, the Apple House here in Terre Haute, Indiana. They are fantastic. Tom and his team at Bloom Brothers are the source that we go to for everything from all your landscaping needs, annuals, perennials, all the different trees, shrubs, you name it, all the floral pots for your porch. They have it all, and their customer service is bar none the best. I just cannot highly recommend them enough for all of your landscape needs. Give them an opportunity. Go tell them Pinpoint sent you. Welcome to Pinpoint. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I cannot wait for you to meet my friend. My husband and I just love this man and his wife, and I'm honored that he's joining me today on this episode of Pinpoint. I want to welcome my dear friend, Doug Napier. Thank you, Doug, for joining us.
Absolutely. It's an honor to be here.
Well, hey, listen, Doug, you guys, he has been an executive pastor for over 25 years. He has his MBA in ministerial studies. He is a consultant with churches and nonprofits. He has a wealth of knowledge, anything biblical. I've been in a small group with him, and he is the go-to when you have a question. So one of the things you guys, if you've been following me for a while, know that I love to talk about is the 10 Commandments. And today we're talking about the Sabbath. This subject is so near and dear to my heart. As a matter of fact, it was the first commandment that the Lord laid on my heart to talk about in my book. And so this subject, it never tires, it doesn't expire. And today, Doug and I are going to dive into the Sabbath. And we have a lot of questions and thoughts about it. And we want to just dive in. And I'm eager to hear what Doug has to say about honoring the Sabbath day. So, Doug, question number one, is the Sabbath day? Well, first of all, question number one, what is the Sabbath? I think that for people may not know, like, what is the Sabbath?
I think for like a majority of people, when you say the Sabbath, they just think of it being Sunday and the time that you go to church. So maybe, for a couple hours on a Sunday, that's when we Sabbath. Um, Even as, if you don't mind, I'll like tell a little bit of my personal story with this
Yeah, please
topic.
do. Yes, please do.
So I had every couple of years, there's a pastor's retreat where it's just designed to just be relaxing, but yet they ask you very probing questions out west. And so I try to go to that about every 2 years. And one of the guys that I was there with, I didn't know him, and he had mentioned this book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Comer.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, incredible, incredible book. And so when I got back, it was this whole idea of like that we live in this hurried state, especially here in America. And so I'm not a big avid reader of books, but I'm an avid listener of books. I have pretty good dyslexia, and so
Ah,
yeah, so I listen to stuff versus trying to actually read.
yeah.
And so I had decided that I was going to listen to this book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And so I have a motorcycle and it has speakers on the inside of the helmet. So you can listen, you can actually talk on the phone and everything while you're driving on the motorcycle.
Cool.
And so I was like, I'm going to just go for a ride one day, maybe take like a half day or so, just go for a ride, just relaxed. And so I was like, I'm going to listen to this book because I had purchased it through Audible.
Okay.
And so I was going to a specific state park, and that's where I kind of decided to go. And the first thing that I was doing was I was taking the fastest route to get there. I was just going to take the interstate to get to this park. And as I was going, I just felt like the Lord said, why don't you take some back roads
Well,
and go
they're
fast?
thinking on a motorcycle for sure. Sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah,
yeah.
wouldn't that be much more enjoyable?
But my brain is like
Mm,
efficiency.
mm.
I'm a guy. How do I get the get the best gas mileage?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, how can I get there 4 minutes quicker than what the GPS said? Like that's what goes through like men's minds. And so like I was like, how much longer? Literally was like arguing with God. Like, do you know how much longer it's going to take me to get there? And I was like, okay, fine.
That's so
And so
funny.
yeah, and then typically I listen to books at 1.5, 1.75, so
Speed through
I
the
can
book.
listen, right. I can listen quicker than I can read. And I felt the next thing the Lord said was, when you start this, put it at 1. And I was like, really,
Ye-
God? Like, no. And he's like, Doug, the name of the book. And I was like, oh, okay, that's convicting. And I haven't even started the book, and the Lord's
Boy,
already
you're in
convicted me
trouble.
twice. Yeah. And so, just an incredible, like, I encourage people to read it. It's just a really great book. And there's a follow-up book called Practicing the Way that he wrote as well. Just 2 books, and then there's a whole small group and a deeper study. Just really, really good stuff.
Yeah.
So it, as I was listening, there's a chapter about Sabbath, and I have been at this point, I had been a pastor probably for, I don't know, 20 years or so.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden it dawned on me that I don't do anything in relationship to honoring the Sabbath and keeping it holy.
Wow. I think you're
And
probably in good company. I think a lot of people
yeah,
probably, yeah.
and you get to the place where it's like, um, am I really trying to honor God in every aspect of my life? And just in America, it's not a popular one to follow.
Hmm.
You think about the like 10 Commandments, and it's like, but we're okay with this one. We don't really talk about what it means to Sabbath, and so it was just a little bit of a discovery that I had to go through on my own, just on that motorcycle ride. But then coming home, and then I started talking to my wife about it, and I was like, the Bible tells us to do this, and we don't do it.
Right.
And so it kind of started me on a journey to like really try to understand, what does it mean? Like, what does it mean to Sabbath? Like, what does that really truly mean? And
Mhm.
at the basis of the word, it just means to cease, to stop.
Mm.
I mean,
Okay.
it's just that simple. That's the basis of the word, to stop, to
Yeah.
cease. And the whole idea um, is the idea of stopping our toil, stopping our work,
Hmm.
um, and really focusing in on 2 things. Is one is rest, and the other is worship. Those are the 2 things that are built into the
Hmm.
idea of Sabbath, is rest and worship.
I'm writing that
And
down.
sure. So
Rest
if you
and
had to
worship.
like real, so it's like, um, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. When we read, at the very beginning, God does not need rest,
Hmm.
but yet he stopped in the creation process, and on the seventh day he rested. He
Oh,
Sabbathed.
wow. Okay, that's pretty profound.
Hmm.
I
So
want
it's
to
like,
just, yeah, I
yeah,
just
go
want to
ahead.
stop you there if you don't mind, because you've said already so much that my brain is just firing all these thoughts and questions. But what you just said about, how God from the very beginning rested and he didn't have to, but it just was a matter of he built that in after he
Hmm.
worked on the seventh day, which of course I love the number seven. I equate that with
Number
completion.
of completion.
Yeah, the
Yep.
number of completion, and it's kind of putting the cherry on the cake of everything, but it's what you need to make it whole.
Hmm.
So I just love that you said that. So I apologize for interrupting, but I
Oh, you're good.
definitely
Oh,
just I think that doesn't want I don't want that to get lost on whoever's listening that the Lord created this day for even himself. So what does that even mean that he did that too?
yeah. You think about it, and I think it's one of those. I mean, there's definitely a lot of depth, and you could spend a lot of time, hypothesizing, or just trying to like drill in. Why did God do this we when he didn't have to?
Right,
And I think it's, it's. I don't think he was like low on energy,
right.
but I think it was, um, even our Creator has rhythms.
Oh yeah.
And not only does he operate in rhythms, but we are created in his image, and creating also the example then that we also need to live in rhythms.
Yeah.
um, there's there's nothing. In fact, I would say it's very, very good that we have rhythms in our life. I know sometimes it can be like, oh, it's the same thing every Monday, same thing every Tuesday, and like, but there's rhythms that we need to operate. You think about the spiritual disciplines, and that we need to have rhythms so that we continue with it, and we benefit from having that deep personal time with our Lord. And so,
Yeah.
yeah. So you just think about how profound it is that he even stopped and rested. It said that he rested, which means that he ceased work, right? That's,
Mhm.
I mean, for
Yeah.
for us looking at God, he ceased creating. That was what he was doing. And in that created a rhythm for us to follow.
Well, I love that. And that along those lines, I mean, resting, I mean, it's important to sleep. As a matter of fact, one time I remember I was really in the Word, and I just happened this particular day after I woke up. I just remember I just sometimes we have a beautiful view from our
You do.
home. We from our home. Thank you. I actually thank God for it. I thanked him this morning. I try to remember to thank him every day because we have beautiful trees and a wonderful backdrop. And this particular day, I remember I was reading the word and I laid back down. I was in the bed reading that morning. Sometimes I, go different places in the house, but that day I was still in the bed doing my worship time and praise time and Devo. And I remember I laid back down and I actually went back to sleep. But as I was going to sleep, it wasn't because I was tired, like, oh, I need more sleep, but it was like I just felt like this need to rest and what I was experiencing in that devotional time. And I remember my husband, Kurt, just was like, wow, you went back to sleep. I'm like, well, not really. It was like a feeling of resting. And that was such a moment that I still, all this time later, because this was like years ago, but I remember it so profoundly as an
Hmm.
opportunity to rest in that intimate time with him. And I
Yeah.
think that's what, to me, is so important, that we don't miss that, that we embrace that and have that. And so now that we know what the Sabbath is and literally what it means to cease and rest and worship, the other huge question that I get faced with, and I do believe it's kind of a controversial question, is it still relevant? You got the
Mm-hmm.
Old Testament, New Testament, you have scriptures very clearly saying Jesus is the Sabbath and he fulfills that of all the commandments that are, from when you look at the Mosaic law, the ceremonial and the symbolic, that would be more under the ceremonial law. So that doesn't really apply. And then you have some people believe that it does. And then there's just opinions. So where do you stand on that?
Well, I mean, Hebrews chapter 4, it says that the Sabbath it still remains. And so for me, I think it's something that is still supposed to be a part of our lives today. Um, it's interesting. I don't discredit people who say that. I mean, I can follow the theology of saying that Jesus is our Sabbath, and yet there's so many other um, things that Jesus said, like, come to me, all you are weary,
Yes.
and find what? Peace and
Rest,
rest,
peace.
right?
Yeah.
So, so it's like there's still this idea of we go to Jesus and we find peace and we find rest. And so even for those who say, oh, that's a Old Testament or a ceremonial and it's not applicable to the church today, I would say there's still, I think, all over Scripture the idea of finding rest and and having a rhythm of that. I don't
Mhm.
think it's one of these things that we need to be so legalistic about, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I think that it's really important that we don't become so flippant about it
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
I think that there's something very, very um, seriously wrong with American culture in our chase for desire,
Mhm.
and in that, I think okay. So if you think about even just a little bit of the history, with the Jewish when the Jewish people looked at the Sabbath, they be it was so legalistic. Look, there were so many rules just around
Right.
it. You were only
Right.
allowed to take so many steps. You were only allowed to do these things and not these things. And Jesus, that's why Jesus said that it's the Sabbath isn't like one of these things that you're supposed to do. The Sabbath is something that's for you.
Right.
It's not
For you
something
to
that,
enjoy. Yeah.
right? Yeah, like the Sabbath is, man is not for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath is for the man, is what Jesus said. And what he's doing is he's like, all of these rules and all of these things that you have around it, like it's not what it's about. Like it is for you. It is for you to rest. I I think the other side of it is in Christianity, we've swung the pendulum completely the other way, and we
Mhm.
don't stop and think about, well, what are the things that are off limits? What
Right.
things shouldn't be there during the Sabbath that we honor, or at least even during that period of time where we rest,
Right.
that we're dedicating and setting aside time, that we're like, hey, we're putting work down, and we are spending this time in rest, we are spending this time in worship, um, and it be something that's not just flippantly done, or something that's just maybe an hour too long. Like
Yeah.
I often tell people, it's like, if you're wanting to incorporate Sabbath into your life, which I think is a good thing, and I think it's something that we're supposed to honor. um, Start low and start working your way up.
Right.
Could you say that 4 hours I'm going to Sabbath,
I
and
guess you
then
could, but I
yeah.
mean, it to me, when you start doing that, then all of a sudden, I think there's a fine line between, okay, we're gonna build up. Like for me,
Mhm.
I started when I started to create a boundary for myself. I did start small and build up, but I think at the same time to put a limit on it, like where's your heart in that? Because if
Sure.
your heart is like, well, I want to quote unquote hurry up and give that
Hmm.
time to the Lord,
Right.
that's not like, why are you doing it? But when I think about for my own experience, I can remember with my work, I decided I'm not going to respond or do
Mm,
any emails or answer any work text or emails or anything on a Sunday. And it actually was a little bit, it took me a while to just not to just naturally open my email or open my phone. I had to, and then, if some of it had to do with like a client, I mean, I had to look at it and go, I'm not answering that. I
mhm.
had to put that boundary, but that was the
Right.
step for me. And then I knew there were a few of my business colleagues that would reach out on a Sunday. And one of them is probably laughing as she's listening to this because she and I've had this conversation. I'm not going to out you, but I'm just going to say, you know who you are. But I'm like, I'm not working. It's a Sunday. And that was a boundary I
Hmm.
had to put up
Yeah.
but I ended up kind of taking that to the next step to your point about starting small and growing. And I thought, why am I not enjoying this entire day? Like, why wouldn't I want to? Like, why wouldn't I?
I think one of the questions we ask ourselves is, even if you're like, theologically, I don't align that this is something that's for the New Testament church.
Right.
Okay, let's just say that you hold that opinion. To take a 24-hour period of time and worship the Lord and to rest is not sin.
Correct.
In fact, I think most of us would say that if I had 24 hours to just worship and to rest and not work, it would probably be a good thing,
We benefit for sure.
but we fight it.
And why is that? Why
I
do you
think
think we do? What is that?
because we chase our desire. We
Really,
chase
it's
our desire.
like pride and just, yeah, that's such an
Well,
interesting thing.
I think in American culture, it's we chase our desire. What is it that we desire? We chase work. We chase more things. We chase more status. We chase what is it that we're chasing? What is it that you do? Like in the day that you could Sabbath, what do you chase that day?
That is such a very good question, Doug. I have to just think about that for a minute because, like, for me personally, I think this is where the spiritual warfare comes in also because the devil knows our weakness. He knows how to distract us because even on a
Mm,
day that, let's say it's a work thing and you like it, or it's money,
sure.
or for some people it could be the thrill of this, getting the deal done or whatever that adrenaline is. And it's like the enemy may know that, so he's going to tempt you with those things. So I feel like that could be part of it. I mean, you have to be aware that it's gonna maybe be a harder thing to let go of initially because you're
Mm.
gonna be attacked. I mean, is that maybe part of it too?
Yeah, I think it's a hard question to be really honest with ourselves and be introspective about what is it that we're chasing. And
Mhm.
and what is it that we spend our time going after. And uh, and if you don't, just ask your spouse or someone close to
Well,
you.
I would say, yeah, Kurt would say it's the Amazon delivery truck. So I must be on Amazon. Although,
Well,
I mean, I
and
spend a lot. So I'm not like a shopper. I don't even like to shop really, but I'm on the computer solving problems, getting, not problems like, big problems, but, just like accomplishing, I should say, not solving
Mhm,
problems, but necessarily checking things off my list that I can do through Amazon. So, I may be buying laundry detergent or supplements.
mhm,
There might be an occasional something else just for fun, but typically it's stuff for the household. But nonetheless, laughingly, Kurt would probably say that's one thing I do. But the other thing is, my family. I love my children so much. I love to talk to them on the phone, spend time with them when I can.
mhm.
My friends, I have friends around the country because I was in Little Rock and then Dallas and now in Indiana. Like you, y'all have moved around. So sometimes just having a good phone call. Well, to me,
Sure.
it's like if I'm doing that on a Sabbath day, that's a good thing, as long as it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
distracting me. Like, am I gossiping? Am I, doing something I shouldn't do on the phone call? That would not be edifying. That may be a little bit of a
Mm,
something that to just check your heart on, but
yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the common questions I get. Like, am I just supposed to lay in bed all day? Like, I can't do that. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've had
yeah.
people say that. It's like, if I'm supposed to rest, am I just supposed to sit all day? And it's like, no, not at all. And in fact, I would say some people probably Sabbath too many days a week.
Well,
If
that's
you're
so funny
if
you
you're
said that.
yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like,
If
one of the questions I wanted to ask you is like, well, what can a Sabbath day look like? So it
mm,
doesn't necessarily mean lay in the bed all day. Although if that is one day that you happen to do that,
mm.
I don't know, that could be a one in every now and then. I don't know, but go
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily wrong to do that. I mean, and it's like, I have kids, so it's like I can't lay in bed all day or they'll starve, or they'll
yeah.
play in the street, and so I
Yeah,
can't just, and I don't think that's, I mean, I know that's not what Sabbath is. It's not
right.
just laying in bed. I think that there is great time to just go take a nap. Like Jesus took naps.
I love a good nap. I
I
mean,
saw a shirt
ask
the other
my
day.
friends. I love a good nap.
I saw a shirt the other day and it said, Jesus took naps.
Yeah.
And then below it, it was a picture of Jesus. And then below that was, I want to be like Jesus.
Love it.
It's just funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think that that's wrong, but I also don't think that like a Sabbath day, just sitting in bed all day long is what God is prescribing either for us.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, um, having a dedicated time where either if you're single and you're living at home alone, that it is dedicated to the Lord. But then there's also, I mean, think about the value that you're instilling into your children to say, hey, we're putting work away,
Mhm.
on this particular day, and we're going to focus our attention on each other in a way that then we can glorify God. And
Yeah.
imagine what that would do in your home one day a week where you're commuting or you're committing altogether that we are going to not work and we are going to dedicate this to the Lord. Um,
Yeah.
so I think it's completely fine to take a nap on a Sabbath. I think it's completely fine to um, have a wonderful meal with friends,
Yeah.
but
I love
slow it
that.
down.
Yeah.
Slow it down. We
Yeah.
I've done something a couple of different ways. We went to some of our friends' house, and I can't remember what country they lived in. Um, they lived in like Norway or Finland, somewhere over there,
Yeah.
maybe Scandinavian area,
Yeah. Yeah.
for a while. And so they have, and I don't even remember what it was called, but they had this meal where you have these little like toaster kind of things that sit in the
Okay.
middle, and you put cheese on this little like
Like
small
fondue,
plate. Well,
kinda?
yeah, and then you take this and then you stick it into this little oven that's on the middle of the table, and you're like, maybe you could put like two or three, four of these little plates in at a time, and then you have to wait for it to heat up.
Oh,
And
wow.
so you're sitting around the table and you're just having conversation with friends, and it forces you to slow down. And so yeah, I mean, I look at that, and I've also even done it in such a way where we've had a meal and we've put a timer on when the next course comes.
Really?
And so you wait. And so you say, like, hey, we're going to eat this quote unquote 3-course meal, but we're going to have a 45-minute timer on each course. And so the next course
Wow.
doesn't come out until, it's like, well, you're cooking, so are you working? And that's the thing is like I think in the Jewish religion, like it's become so legalistic, like of all, I don't think that's what God is intending. In fact, Jesus like said point blank that like this isn't what it was intended for. Um, One of
Hmm.
the things I still don't know the answer on, like, but we have 4 kids and they played sports, and sometimes a sports baseball game or a basketball game or whatever was on a day. It's like
Yeah.
I I don't see that as work.
Yeah.
Um, I think travel sports can overwhelm too. So I think
Yeah.
that there's a balance in it. But
I do agree with that. All three of our kids
yeah.
were, um, really, all of our children were involved in sports,
Mhm.
soccer, football. Our daughter was a cheerleader. I mean, all the things. And you travel to competitions, travel to, games, etc., on a high level. And I do have to say on that, without getting off course completely, I do think it's gotten out of control on a Sunday because there's
Mhm.
not one sacred day. There's not a day for the kids to even
Yeah.
rest
Right.
because the kids'
Yeah.
schedules have been so monopolized by achievement. You got to do this, and if you don't show up, you're going to be penalized. And there's not a day for a family to just be together in a way that they want to honor the Lord. Although, to your point, I do agree, you can't, at least you're together as a family.
Hmm. Right.
But at the same time, I'm kind of, on this hand, sometimes I know our experience was a lot of times the family is, going in two different directions.
Mhm.
So you or one of the kids is not with you because someone has to take them because there's conflict. So, I remember when I was growing up, back in the 60s, 60s and 70s, I love that era and that time, but we had, this is kind of a two-part comment. We had Sundays were different then. Sundays were a day that we would go to church and then we would come home and have lunch. Sometimes we'd go pick it up. There weren't a lot of
Mhm.
places, to do that.
Right.
But
Basically, everything was closed on Sunday.
it was. I mean, I'm thinking like Kentucky Fried Chicken, maybe.
Mhm.
But usually, or one of the cafeterias. Do you remember the days of the cafeterias?
Oh, sure.
We might do something like that. But occasionally we would go to someone's house, that kind of thing. Or we would go on a picnic. My mom and my dad died when I was really young, so these memories are from a long time ago. But after my father died, I was 11. My mom would still have my brother and I go after church oftentimes and go visit an elder relative. Or
Mhm.
we would literally go on a Sunday drive. That I mean, you hear let's take a Sunday drive. Younger generations may not have ever heard that, but I mean, we would do the Sunday drive, and then we might randomly just pop by somewhere. Those are
They
the
had
days.
just invented the wheel, so it was new still. So
Exactly. We were all like, "Let's drive the car." We were all about it. So, yeah, but I mean, it's like we would go visit someone or take them a cookie or something. I mean, we would just go have a visit and
sure.
sit there, have an iced tea or whatever, and just pour into someone. So I feel like that the notion of that Sabbath day was there. And I do believe there are still families that will gather on Sundays, have a Sunday meal. So I definitely love that. But this also takes me into more recently. I have been, because the Christians have sort of dubbed unofficially Sunday as a Sabbath day
Mhm.
with um the New Testament, with Jesus, like that's the first day, that's the day that we kind of just by naturally that's what has kind of happened, although I don't think that's technically necessarily right or wrong. The Jewish Sabbath starts, I think, at sundown on Friday and goes through sundown on Saturday. So Saturday is really more the Sabbath rest.
Mhm.
And I've wanted to explore that more. I mean, do you feel like that matters? Can Sabbath be any day of the week? I've heard some people say just pick one day of the week and make that your Sabbath, which, I mean, generally speaking, we should be honoring the Lord every day, but a day that we are intentional.
Mhm.
Is there a particular day in your view that needs to be the day, Jewish, Christian, or should that even like those words not even be relevant?
I think what Jesus was saying when he said that the man wasn't created for Sabbath, but the Sabbath was created for man. What he was saying is like all of the legalistic rules that you have around this isn't the point.
Right.
And so the day of the week. So obviously in creation story on the seventh day, it began like, so the week begins on Sunday in Jewish culture. And so the last day um,
Saturday.
would be Saturday,
Yeah.
right? So that would be the seventh day. And that's what's been practiced forever. In Christianity, there was a switch where, um, not to go into all of the history of it, but basically moving the Sabbath to a Sunday to honor the resurrection.
Right.
And so that's where our weekend comes from. Is the Jewish people had Saturday, the Christians moved it to Sunday, and so now you've got those 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, which is where our weekend comes from. Because
I
before
never
that,
thought about that. The
before
weekend. Hello, that's so obvious. Okay, I never thought about that.
yeah, the um, it was a 6 day and is a 6 day work week, in Jewish culture. But in American culture, because of Christianity moving that to Saturday or Sunday rather, you still have that Saturday Sabbath and then the Sunday Sabbath, and that's why we have the Saturday Sunday weekend. It was based upon the Jewish tradition and then the switching of the Christian tradition to Sunday.
Interesting. I never had even known that. That's
Mm.
very interesting. So you could have
But
2 days, people.
right, exactly.
You don't have to limit your Sabbath to 1 day.
So
Interesting.
I don't think the day of the week matters. I think there are some things that play into it. I think that there is an individual aspect of our walk with Jesus that we have. But then there's also a communal aspect of our walk with Jesus that we have. It's
Mhm.
like when you think about the Lord's Prayer, half of it is like our Father. It's not my Father, it's our Father who art in heaven.
Mhm.
And give us this day our daily bread. It's this whole idea is like, yes, I have this individual relationship with God, but we have this relationship with God.
Mhm.
We're our community has this relationship with God. And so I
Right.
think the community piece of it needs to be taken in consideration when you choose. So I'll just give you an example from me.
Yeah.
Being a pastor, I work on Sundays. That's a work day. Um, yeah, you may think that we just show up and we're like, oh, we're just
Oh
attending church.
gosh.
No, you're on as soon as you pull in that driveway or
Yeah.
into the the
Probably
parking lot.
way earlier in the morning. You're probably
Right,
prepping emotionally, spiritually, praying, all the things.
100%. Yeah, so that's a work day. So I'm I'm not honoring the Lord on the Sabbath in that context on a Sunday. I'm honoring the Lord in a different way, but
Yeah.
not in the context of a Sabbath. So for me, um, Friday was our Sabbath. Friday evenings
Okay.
was our time where we would spend that together with our children. And there have been oftentimes where we would switch it
Yeah.
because there was something going on a Friday night, and
Right.
so we just make sure that we say no to things.
Right.
Um, it's okay to say yes to something, and to do that, but if you've
Mhm.
got like I think the idea is like if you're going to 5 events every weekend, like it's I think the Lord knows it's not healthy for us at our core, in our soul. You know, um,
Mhm.
I when I did my MBA, I wrote on Chick-fil-A several times, and
Oh, wow.
Chick-fil-A is closed on
Yeah.
Sunday,
Yeah.
right? And so they could make so much more money. They would make so much more money if they
Right.
just opened up on Sunday. They would make so much more money
Right.
because all the Christians would leave church and go there on a Sunday, right? So,
Yeah.
but Truett Cathy just knew that there's something that God set into that rhythm for us that we need to have that day where we honor the Lord, that we spend that time worshiping Him and
Mhm.
being together and just being very purposeful. There's other businesses that do it too.
Yeah.
And I think that they just understand something that there's something deeper and bigger than just making money.
Right.
and that there's this well-being of your soul, you know. So, but
Well,
yeah,
I
we
love
would
that.
we would switch sometimes our day, based upon what was going on. Like we just
Mhm.
wanted to ensure that we were spending time, that there was at least something that we were doing, where we were being purposeful. We would often hang out with our friends on a Friday, and we
Yeah,
would cook a meal together and just hang and
that's
enjoy each
awesome.
other. Yeah.
Well, and I think that when we do that, it's an example to our children, to other friends that are watching, that we are slowing down or that we are creating a boundary. And kind of before we start to wrap up this episode, I wanted to just go back to something you said way earlier on in our conversation that when you look at the Sabbath, it's the fourth commandment. And we kind of talked about where that um confusion has been for some people with New Testament, Old Testament, with the new covenant of Christ, resurrection. And so I wonder though, and you may have already answered this, with the Sabbath being, how do I say this? A commandment that it's almost like it doesn't affect us like we think it does.
Mhm.
For example, if someone stole from you or you're not supposed to steal, you can have.
Somebody murdered. I don't really
Right.
struggle with that one.
Yeah, yeah, because it's like there's consequences, I guess what I'm.
Right.
Is there something to it that we don't really realize the consequence of not honoring the Sabbath? Like, we're really missing out, where some of the other commandments are so obvious, like, if you do
Mhm.
this, you're gonna suffer this consequence. Is that making sense what I'm saying? What I'm asking?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's one of those consequences that is less visible. I,
Yeah,
I think I think it's I think the consequences are soul. I think the
yeah,
consequences are rest, our peace. I We live in a culture that thrives on go, 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 go,
yeah.
and and don't realize the benefit of just saying, hey, we're going to stop and we're going to say no, and we're going to dedicate that time to the Lord. I mean, at the end of the day, if I don't Sabbath, you know, um,
It's not a
there's
heaven or hell issue.
and at the same time, it's like I may not necessarily know the benefit that I could have had if, like, uh, to use an example, like if I don't go work out or exercise, I just don't do it. I don't feel what the benefit could have been.
Right, that's such a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, the consequence is not felt because it's not so much that it's a consequence, but it's the benefit of what we receive by doing it.
Mm.
So,
Well, I think that is the biggest key right there is that it was made for us and we
mm,
get the benefit of it and it's still relevant. There's scripture after scripture that that clearly from Mark, Hebrews, and the New Testament are just a few where Jesus is clear that this is a benefit for us.
I think
Yeah.
something that I would say, kind of just as a final word, that I think maybe we all need to hear, your listeners, and um, is that the Sabbath is God giving us permission to say no.
Love that.
Yeah, He gives you permission to
Yeah.
say no.
Well, I love that.
Hmm.
Um, that's a pearl of wisdom right there. And as you may know, I close each episode with a pearl of wisdom. And today, what I want to do is there is someone that I would have loved to have had on my podcast that died, and that is Charlie Kirk. And
Yeah.
Charlie, I don't know if anybody's read this book that's listening, but he wrote a book that came out right when he was killed called Stop in the Name of God. And it's why honoring the Sabbath will transform your life. And so, my pearl of wisdom that I want to just say is in part, read the book. I mean, we've got the Bible is the best book to read, but this book is an amazing book. And in the end, it's interesting, Doug, you'll be interested to know that in his final chapter, he writes about Sabbath made simple. And some of the things that you've mentioned as tools is what he said. And he
Mm.
started off slow. He recommends start a ritual, start a small, simple step to create a space to honor the Sabbath. So that is one thing I would recommend to everyone to do is start just one simple step. And then the other thing he did is he made a pointed effort, and he talked about this on, podcast, and on his own podcast, he talked about this. He would turn off his social media and he would put it down. And whether you take the phone, because I think that's really the master distractor that the enemy uses is our social media. Whether it's, I don't need to go into that deep, but taking the phone, creating a space to put your phone down. And that way you're not tempted to get on it. But if you have to have it for safety reasons or you're traveling and you need to communicate, that's one thing. But just basically fasting social media for a
Mhm.
24-hour period is what he did, and he focused on his family. So I just want to impart those pieces of wisdom to create those barriers for yourself and protect yourself and your families, and encourage your friends to join you in taking these steps to honor the Sabbath. And as Doug said, we are going to be the beneficiaries as we thank the Lord, have gratitude, praise Him, worship Him, have praise music going. It's going to draw us closer and bring us more peace. So, with that said, I just want to thank you, Doug, for joining me on this conversation
For
that is
sure.
so meaningful to me. I love the Sabbath day, and um, thank you so much for joining me. And for all of you, we'll put some of these resources in the show notes. And thank you for joining us on this episode of Pinpoint. Thank you for watching Pinpoint. If you are interested in hearing more content like this, we would love your support. You can support Pinpoint and our ministry by going to my website at libbypendergast.com, and there's an opportunity to be an angel donor. Also, there's a QR code that we will have attached to this episode that you can donate that way too, and we appreciate you so much. If you have ideas for a guest or a subject you want to hear, send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. And thank you for supporting Pinpoint.